What is morality? Well, if you ask the dictionary, it'll define it for you as conformity to the rules of right conduct, or moral and virtuous conduct. Morality in television and film is typically run as the good guy. His morality stands as the judgment of what is right and what is wrong. It's often an obstacle that the protagonist must deal with in addition to dealing with the more physical problem in his main antagonist, which is usually another person or an object. In mainstream television, morality in film is staged typically as the hero doing the right thing, no matter what, and always prevailing. Some examples of moral characters in television and movie past are Luke Skywalker from the 1970s and 80s saga Star Wars. In this film, Luke was striving to become a Jedi and always trying to do the right thing, putting others ahead of himself. In this clip, Luke is actually fighting against his father, even though he has just discovered that it is his father, Darth Vader, who is trying to get him to join the dark side.
Come with me. It is the only way.
Similar to Luke Skywalker was Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones. Now, Indiana Jones was an archaeologist looking to discover these great artifacts and try to keep them away from the hands of the vicious and evil Nazis, trying to do the right thing by making sure that all of these artifacts, even though most of them usually had something that the audience didn't expect out of them, he was always trying to keep them out of the hands of the bad guys and put them in the hands of the United States and put them into museums. Now, this third example of film we're taking a look at is George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. Jimmy Stewart plays the part of this man who has such a great potential in his life, but never really seems, at least to him, like he's accomplishing that because he's putting everyone else ahead of himself. George Bailey pretty much defines morality and how it pushes people to the breaking point in which he can't stand putting other people ahead of himself, even though he knows it's the right thing to do.
Help me, Clarence! Get me back! Get me back! I don't care what happens to me! Get me back to my wife and kids! Help me, Clarence, please! Please! I want to live again! I want to live again! I want to live again! Please, God, let me live again.
Next, let's take a look at the character of Dexter Morgan from the Showtime original series Dexter. Now, Dexter is a happy-go-lucky blood splatter analyst with a dark secret. He's really an emotionless serial killer who feeds his compulsion for blood by hunting down other serial killers. This is like waving a magnet in front of one's moral compass, because most people will agree that having the hero as a vigilante serial killer is wrong. The hero is supposed to spare lives, innocent and guilty, right? Not if you ask Dexter. It is the part that Dexter plays, and it's the reason the show has drawn so much criticism as well as praise from audiences. It forces people to ask themselves if Dexter's actions are morally just or not.
In real life, morality is a much simpler thing, it would seem. The actors of Flight 93, who retook a hijacked plane on September 11th, 2001, we indeed know them to be moral, as their actions saved possibly hundreds, thousands of lives, depending on what would have happened had the hijackers of that plane been able to hold on to it. They may have crashed it in a field, but their selfless actions we can all judge to be extremely moral and good. Back to television and film, however, where it's sometimes, as we have seen in Dexter, it's not quite the same. It's not quite as easy to determine. Let's take a moment now to take a look at a few of today's moral characters. First off, let's take a look at Captain Stephen Hiller from Independence Day. Now, Captain Hiller is a man in the Air Force looking to get married, settle down with his future wife and her son. However, whenever his planet is invaded by aliens, he's forced to take action. He sacrifices himself in the hopes that perhaps his family, his country, and his planet can survive. Continuing on, let's take a look at President James Marshall, portrayed by none other than my favorite actor, Harrison Ford, who in this film has the opportunity to escape the presidential Air Force One craft when it is overtaken by Gary Oldman and his group of hijacking terrorists. He's put on the escape pod, but he gets out of that in order to stay on the plane in order to save his family and those aboard the craft. Later in the film, under intense duress of being not only shot himself but having his family killed, the president is forced to make some extremely moral decisions regarding morality as to doing what is right and being selfish, trying to save himself and his family over the fate of an entire nation. This film is a great example when you're trying to study exactly how morality takes its toll on somebody. Now, taking a look on the other hand at a morally weak character, let's look at Anakin Skywalker. We know how it ends for him after the first 3 films in chronological order of the Star Wars saga. But how does he get there? Anakin, it seems, wants to follow the correct path, but he always chooses the selfish route first, putting himself ahead of others. In the end, it leads him down the path of darkness, which leads to worse and worse things. In the end, this film shows that morality leads to the right path, but being immoral will lead you, well, to be wearing a metal suit. So in conclusion, what is morality? Well, morality is simply what is right and what is wrong. Who can define it? Well, I suppose every person has to have their own definition of exactly what morality is. It's not a normal kind of thing that can be held within and defined and written down on paper. This is right and this is wrong. It just comes down to judgment, I think, in the end.